you, Sneha, for the opportunity. As you can see the image on the slide right now, it says end speciesism. And like Sneha mentioned, we're going to be discussing something about effective advocacy or advocacy 101, as we would like to put it. So when we talk about advocacy or, Advocacy 101, what exactly do we mean by it? Or what do we mean by the diverse ways to advocate for non human animals? So, before we get into advocating and the methods of doing it, I would like to first discuss a little more about the organization that I am here to represent, that is FIAPO, and the kind of work that we're involved in. So, FIAPO, or with the full form, Federation of Indian Animal Protection Organizations, is an organization that is aimed at protecting the interest of animals on local as well as national levels through a series of different activities that are listed. So there's education, there's research, advocacy, mobilization, building a network, training. All of these are the aspects through which we can make some tangible change for the non-human people that we share the world with, that we share the society with, and create a safer space for them. We do know that we share this planet with them, we share the society with them, but yet we have not been able to treat them with the respect, dignity, and the rights that they deserve, that they are inherently born with. So we do have a network of more than 192 member NGOs that we are associated with, who help us with on-ground work, as well as a network of more than 1,500 activists and volunteers who support us with all of these activities that we do. And they are the ones who have always helped carry the movement forward. So once again, I will be talking a lot about these same aspects when we do advocacy. And before we move ahead, when we talk about advocating for animals or non-humans, one important aspect to remember is, if we truly want to be anti-speciesist, then whenever we refer to non-human animals, we must keep in mind that in our advocacy, we have to include all sentient non-human individuals. And you will notice me using these same words during the presentation. I won't be saying non-human animals. I'll be referring to them as non-human persons, non-human individuals, or simply put non-humans, because we want to be inclusive of all the sentient individuals out there, not just animals, but birds, fishes, crustaceans, insects, etc. All of these that we sometimes unknowingly, subconsciously end up missing out on. So just something that each one of us can be a little more mindful of during our advocacy. So the aspects or the topics that we will be covering today will be broadly into these 6 categories that you can see: understanding speciesism, the importance of education, activism, how to conduct it, what are the ways in which we can do it, organizing an activism or an event and how to go about it, how to spread awareness to others through whatever mode you have chosen, as well as being consistent and the challenges one may face while being consistent. So let us just dive right into it. The first thing that we will be talking about is speciesism. When we talk about speciesism, how do we perceive the word speciesism? What is our understanding of the word speciesism? And how do we advocate for anti-speciesism? When we are advocating for the rights of non-human persons, we have to understand that speciesism is the root of the oppression that they are facing. So, what exactly is speciesism, first of all? Speciesism is the practice of treating members of one species as morally more important or morally more worth than the members of other species. So, the belief that this practice is justified is also considered as speciesism. So, let us say we talk about humans, and sometimes we feel that humans are morally superior, or they are worth more, we should care more about humans. That is speciesism. If we talk about any particular species, for example, if we feel that one animal, let's say a dog, is more important than a cow that we see on the streets, that is also speciesism. So this helps us to categorize speciesism into 2 basic things. One of them is anthropocentric speciesism, which is the belief that humans are superior than the other individuals who are there, and companion animal speciesism. So, companion animal speciesism is the belief that companion animals, that is, the animals that we keep in our homes, we domesticate them, or maybe we just treat them as our companions, are superior than the other animals. A lot of times we consider dogs or cats to be superior. we believe that they are morally more worth, they are more important. Sometimes we also believe that animals who we raise for our use, who are our companions in that manner, are more superior as compared to maybe, let's say, wildlife. So these are the aspects that really help us break it down. But to understand this better, let us do a small activity. So what we'll be doing over here is I'm going to display three different examples or three different phrases on the screen. And once you see it, please feel free to unmute yourself and share whether you feel it is speciesist or not. And if you feel that it is, why? If you feel that it is not, still why? So the first thing is the phrase poor voiceless animals. So would somebody like to tell me whether this phrase that you can see is speciesist or not, and why? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. I would just like to know what your thoughts are, and maybe we can have a discussion on this. So, anybody, what do you think? Is this speciesist or not?
Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Hi, Stuti. I'm Muskan. So I think this state, this phrase is speciesist because saying that they are poor and voiceless animals means just because we don't understand what they are speaking, their language doesn't mean that they are voiceless. We can hear them, but uh, uh, the reason that we cannot understand what they are saying uh, doesn't make them poor or somebody who are not raising their voice of for the oppression they are facing.
Correct, correct. So you've put it in a very precise and appropriate manner. Just because their language is something we don't understand or we are not able to comprehend, or it is not something that is in comparison or human like, it does not mean that they are voiceless. They very much have a voice. They express themselves a lot of times. They do show that they are not interested in being oppressed. They are not interested in being exploited, that they don't like being treated that way. But just because they don't meet the standards that we humans have set for ourselves or what we believe to be normal, does not mean that they are not superior, or they are inferior to us, or we are superior, or that they don't have a voice. A lot of times we end up doing this in trying to amplify their voices, trying to portray whatever they may be feeling by saying they are voiceless. But in doing that, we are also pushing the ideology or the mentality that because it is not in a way that we created or that we set as a standard, it means they don't have a voice at all. Even using words like poor animals shows that they are inferior to us or they are helpless, whereas they are not. They are as much sentient as human beings are, they have as much value as we have. And even if they don't, that does not justify calling them inferior or considering them as inferior. Thank you so much, Muskan, for sharing the perspective. Let us go to the next one. Pigs are as smart as dogs. What about this statement? Anybody is free to share. What do you think about the statement, pigs are as smart as dogs? And I think a lot of times we also use this comparison when we are, talking to people. Do you know that pigs are also as smart as dogs are? And we still exploit them. So, what do you think about this statement? Anyone at all, please. If no one says, we won't be able to move ahead. So, I would really want somebody to share whatever they think. In case you don't want to unmute yourself, you can use the chat option also if you want. That is also fine. But please do share what you think about this, because this is a statement that we use a lot of times. I myself have also heard a lot of activists, advocates use this statement.
Hi Stuti, this is Jaspreet here.
Hi, Jaspreet.
I am not very sure, but I think it is about comparison, and we are keeping dogs as one standard and then comparing pigs that they are as smart, or maybe we were considering them dumb, and then now we are saying that they are as smart as dogs. So I
Right.
think this is speciesism. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing and putting it in a way that people can understand in very simple words. So, when we say pigs are as smart as dogs, like Jaspreet said, there is a comparison that we are putting over there. Now, why does one particular species have to be like another species, whether it is human? Sorry, just a moment. Yeah, I'm so sorry. So, like Jaspreet said, comparison itself says that one particular species is the standard that we have to set. There are children sometimes who may not have the abilities that we consider normal, but that does not mean that their worth is any less or we have to treat them any differently. We advocate for the rights of human beings in all equality. When we talk about equity and equal rights, we don't consider factors as if, they need to be equal for them to have some rights. In the same way, when we talk about any particular species, one does not have to be like another. This sentence also ends up telling people that dogs being smart are not exploited, whereas there are industries that exploit dogs as well. Though they may be smart according to our standards, they are still oppressed, exploited within the companion animal industry, what we more popularly know as the pet industry. There are places where dogs are consumed, there are places where dogs are put into fights. So, this kind of tells us that dogs, they are a privileged species, and that's why they don't maybe see any exploitation. So we are also pushing a speciesist mindset over there when we use this particular statement. So one does not have to match the qualities of another species in order for them to be considered worthy. And that comparison also kind of ends up trivializing the oppression, the exploitation that the other species may be facing. Now, the last one, acting like an animal. This is something that we see a lot of friends using, a lot of family members using. If somebody may not be acting or behaving properly, we say, stop acting like an animal. Why are you acting like an animal? What are your thoughts about this statement? Anyone, please share your thoughts.
Hi, I would like to speak on this.
Yes, please.
So whenever someone says like you're acting like an animal, they are looking down on animal species
Correct.
as if humans are superior and animals are not up to the mark, and treating animals in a degraded manner.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Precisely like when we compare such a behavior with animals, it implies that something which is bad or wrong is a common trait or a natural trait of the animal. We are looking down on them and using that as an insult, whereas it's not the same. An animal knows how to act. Animals do not harm nature, they do not do anything without necessity. It is us humans who do it. So, when we talk about it in this manner, or even when we don't stop others who may be talking about the particular aspect of being like an animal or acting like an animal, we are again pushing that mindset that animals are inferior, or if somebody is misbehaving, an animal's natural behavior is to misbehave. I think somebody has raised their hand. Would you like to share something?
Yeah, I think that when you say that you someone oversees the fact that animals are not as soulless or as stupid and reckless as we think. They're more emotional. They have more values than we tend to believe.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing. They do have a lot of more value than we do. They value each other, they value us. Despite the way we treat them, they still put their faith in us. So they're anything but misbehaving or behaving in a bad manner or acting in ways that we like to look at as wrong. So using this statement is definitely very speciesist and one must avoid it. Even if we see somebody else saying it, If it is in our capacity, I would really encourage that each one of us go to them and educate them, or at least try to educate them and let them know why this statement is not right. So now that we talked about the ways in which speciesism may be visible in our daily lives, how do we advocate for anti-speciesism? How do we ensure that we are not being speciesist and we ask other people to not be speciesist? So the first thing to keep in mind is to address all forms of animal exploitation. A lot of times when advocating for animal rights, what we end up doing is we end up addressing the aspect of a diet which is coming from plants, which is originating from plant sources. We forget to address the other ways in which non-human persons may be exploited on a daily basis, such as the transport industry or experimentation or clothing industries, the entertainment industries, so many places where on a daily basis these things are also happening. But we kind of address only one aspect, and that also ends up telling us that food is the only way in which animals are exploited, or being anti-speciesist means not consuming animals as your food, which is not true. Addressing all forms of animal exploitation will help us as an advocate highlight the plight of animals within all industries, and it will help other people also become aware about all ways in which they may be exploiting animals. They may be consuming things that are coming as a way of exploitation and oppression. And it will help us as well as them be more equal in our approach, be more aware in our approach, as well as help different forms of exploitation come to an end. The second thing to remember is that the focus is non-human animals. The focus is not us, our personal beliefs, not how human beings would benefit from leaving animals off of their lives, using animals, avoiding using animals. It is not about us. It is about the non-human people, the non-human individuals who are being exploited on a daily basis. So the focus should be on why and how we can liberate them, and not on how we can make it feasible for human beings. We can make it easier for human beings. A lot of times we end up using a solution based approach that will suit the person that we're talking to. For example, somebody is very encouraged about like enthusiastic about their health, so we'll end up telling them this will benefit your health. We should not do that. The approach that we need to adapt when advocating for animals is that animals are suffering, they are being exploited on a daily basis, and that is wrong. Of course, we can talk about the added benefits, advantages as an extension to our advocacy, but that is all they should be. They should be the extensions and not the focus. If somebody does not really end up being aware about the ways in which non-human people are being exploited, there is a chance they may choose very specific aspects of what they want to change in their life. And how is it not speciesist? If we want to advocate for anti-speciesism, we need to tell people why exploiting non-humans is wrong and how they can stop exploiting them. And we do not need to tell them that because something is benefiting them, they should stop doing it. Of course, we should avoid comparison between any species, whether it is with humans or non-humans, because it indirectly implies that one is more worthy than the other, or one deserves more respect, dignity, consideration, rights than the other, which is also speciesism. We may be saying that, I care about my companion animal, and that's why I think more about them, or that's why I give more consideration towards them. But it does not matter how we share a relationship with any non-human for them to be able to live their lives on their own terms and get the dignity that they deserve, the bodily autonomy that they deserve, the respect that they deserve. So I hope that these are the aspects that each one of us as an advocate can keep in mind very firmly and imply whenever we are advocating for anti-speciesism, imply it in our approach as well. Moving on to the second topic that we will be discussing, which is about education. This is about getting educated as a person who is going to be speaking about the movement or advocating about non-human people out in the public. Because it is very necessary to find credible information, credible resources for education and awareness purposes, because whenever we are out there and we are going to be talking about these things, people are going to perceive the movement through whatever we are saying. So why is it so important? Because these credible resources help us ensure that only reliable data and information is shared and no misleading data is shared. Misleading anybody is a propaganda, and we are not here for a propaganda. We are here for liberation of non-human people. And keeping the information reliable, relevant, authentic, viable is very important if we really want the movement to grow in the right direction. So, what are the ways in which you can get credible information? What are the resources that you can consider authentic? There are peer reviewed research articles, lots of online libraries. There are books, literary works that are written, scholarly databases, government websites, organization websites, educational websites. There are workshops or webinars that reliable organizations and groups of people may be conducting, like the one we are doing today with Animal Alliance Asia. There are online courses which are put out from reliable sources, experts in the field, and all of these are very good sources of information that we can share with people, because these are information data which have been curated especially for one particular purpose. It is important to know the authenticity of these credible resources as well. And I will share a little bit of do's and don'ts on how you can, kind of ensure that the data that is coming to you is authentic. So the do's that we need to keep in mind is, when we are referring to any material, ensure that it is published in the past 10 years, because it will keep it very relevant, very fresh. And in case there have been any changes in the research or in the data that we have come across, it will be updated. It may happen sometimes that everybody is following the wrong data, and then some breakthrough happens and we get to know that, oh, this was wrong, this is the right information which is there. So using material which is published only in the past 10 years helps us keep it relevant as well as time bound. So just ensure that whenever you go through any material, please just check when was it published. Also check who the material has been funded by. There are a lot of researches, articles which are funded by animal industries to push the idea that we do need animal products in our lives. So it is important to check whether the material has been funded by anybody in case. And the same thing goes for all the different materials we refer to. Any courses that we are undertaking, anything we are doing, check whether it has been funded by any particular industry, so that you know who it has been influenced by. Check if the person who has published it is an expert or a respected person in the field. That will also again help us know whether the information which is out there is actually reliable or not. What are the things that we need to avoid and we need to be mindful about? Don't use Wikipedia. Don't use websites or sources of information that can be edited by any and every person. A lot of people go to Wikipedia as a source of information, but Wikipedia is an open platform and anybody can edit the content. So it is not reliable. Do not use social media posts or personal blog articles, because, to put it in a very simple manner, these are more opinion based and less fact based. These are platforms that people use to express themselves. So don't rely on them for reliable information. Of course, we may rely on it for sources of information, but whether it is reliable or not, we can't say. Don't use material that lacks appropriate citations or resources. If somebody is sharing some information, even on their article or their journal, whatever, please look at the citations and resources so that we can know where they have taken this information from, what is the source of this information, and whether it is opinion based or fact based. And I think this will help everybody stay on track about the information that we are using, as well as propagating when we are talking to people on the field. The third thing that we are talking about is activism. Ways in which we can start activism in our region, we can identify opportunities and take the activism a little ahead in our own regions. So, first of all, what is activism? Any act wherein you are actively engaged, actively campaigning for bringing any change, or the methods that you use to bring this change in society, is called activism. So there are like a several number of different types of activism, forms of activism that one can undertake. But if you want to start activism, what are the things that you need to keep in mind? First of all, identify ways in which you can contribute. So let's say somebody may be a really good content writer, somebody may be good at designing, somebody may be good at speaking, somebody may be a musician, somebody may be good with social media. Identify the ways in which you can contribute. Is there a way in which you can initiate activism? Is there a way in which you can communicate with people? Maybe you can wear t-shirts or badges that carry the message for you if you are not able to speak for it yourself. Maybe you can make some posts, maybe you can share the post that somebody else has made, you can create artworks, maybe you can speak to your friends and family. Anything at all that you're able to do, identify it. If one is aware about how they can contribute, it will make it even better for them to be able to utilize that once they are aware about it. If you are not able to identify that, the easiest thing that one can do is volunteer or join an organization. For example, FIAPO offers a volunteering opportunity to people. You can go to the website, you can sign up for volunteering, you will be added to the network, and then you can support the campaigns that FIAPO is doing. So in this way, we will be working together. You will be updated about the things that are happening on the animal liberation front, what is going on in the movement, how are the ways in which you can contribute. Similarly, Animal Alliance Asia is also offering volunteering. So they may be focusing on some different campaigns. They may be working on some different aspects of the movement. And when you volunteer with them, you will not only be made aware about how you can contribute, but you will also be able to play your own part and join a movement which is already happening and build your own capacity while doing the same as well. You can also join or form a local group or community. Let's say you are in a particular region where there is a group who is active. Join them, help them. It will help you become more aware. It will help you gain more experience, as well as it will help you make the movement even bigger in the region where you currently are situated. If there is no group or community, go ahead, build one. Maybe you will start from a very small group, very small community, but people will keep joining in, and then the movement will start growing. The next is about organizing, or the ways in which you can start activism. So what are the ways in which you can organize activism? What are the ways in which you can start doing activism, and the methods to do that? First of all, why is it really important to be organized and to know how you can do things? Because staying organized will help you be prepared. Unless we think about the aspects that we may need to encounter when we are doing some activity, it may happen so that whatever resources, opportunities, permissions, anything that we may need are not with us. And then we may not be able to achieve the outcome that we first wanted to. It may affect the quality of the activity, the activism that we wanted to portray. So it's important to stay organized. And in order to do that, it is also important to be aware about the ways in which you can do activism, the types of activisms which are there, and then what will be the aspects that you need to keep in mind when you are doing activism. So there are conventional methods like signing petitions, demonstrations, social media activism, everything that you can see on the screen right now, which people usually do. But if you're not comfortable with these conventional methods of doing activism, there are also unconventional ways that one can adapt, that a person can adapt based on what they feel they may be able to do. So these are a lot of different ways in which I've seen activists work, I've seen experts work, I've seen them promote the message through these types of activism. And I would really encourage you to pick anything from these that you feel works for you and go ahead with it. When we talk about using your skills for activism, you may consider, if you're an artist, maybe post artworks online. If you're somebody who is making music, you can make some tracks, you can talk about it. If you're somebody who is really good at talking about it, giving speeches, maybe record yourself, share it across different platforms. Whatever skills you may have, it's never a bad idea to use them, and in making a big impact through whatever you feel works for you. People also fast on a particular day to raise awareness about animals. There are tweetathons, there are protests that people engage in, vigils. So vigils are when people go to a slaughterhouse, a dairy farm, they go to places where animals are being used, they are being exploited, they create content and they post it online. They share it across social media, they share it on WhatsApp groups so that more people can become aware about the ways in which non-human people are suffering. So anything that comes to your mind, conventional and unconventional ways, is fine. It is also important to remember that there are types of activism which are specific to situations. They are specific to any particular context. So there are certain do's and don'ts that we need to keep in mind. For example, Have clarity as well as awareness about what is it that you wish to do during the activism, what is the purpose, how do you wish to achieve it. Get any necessary permissions or resources in advance. For example, if one was to go and do chalk art, chalktivism, you will need permission whether it is okay to make chalk illustrations at a particular place, if it is a public place. If it is a private place, it may be considered as trespassing if we do not get the permissions and we go ahead and create chalk art anyway. We may need resources such as chalks. We may need a cloth to erase if we made a mistake. We may need water to clean off anything. We may need a set of reference images, reference messages. We may need to see whether the place where we are planning to make chalk art is appropriate for creating chalk arts or not. So all of these things help us and ensure that we are on track and we will be able to conduct the activism in an appropriate manner. Ensure that you record good quality and well lit pictures and videos. Why is this important? Because a lot of times what may happen is we may not get a lot of reach through the activism itself, but we will create a reel and we'll post it on social media and maybe 500 people will see it. We may just take pictures and share it on WhatsApp where a group of 30 people may see it. It still has a bigger impact, even if we were not able to reach people during the activity itself. And it is important to share this because we want to maximize the impact through the activism. Also, some things to consider avoiding when we are indulging in activism. Let us not assume that any permissions won't be required or be necessary, because let's say we talked to our friends, we gathered a group of 7 people, we got all the resources that we needed, we went to a public place and then we were driven out because we did not have the permission to do it. It will be such a waste of time, energy, and resources that we could have put to create an impact instead. So it's better that we don't assume and we just double check, we stay prepared so that there are no last moment surprises for our activism to go in the opposite direction than we intended it to go. Use language that may be discriminatory or appropriate is a strict no-no, because we are here to represent the movement. We want people to be aware about the movement, and we cannot fight against discrimination by being discriminatory ourselves. We have to have this in our approach, that we use language that is inclusive, that is appropriate, and that is respectful at all times. Because if we are advocating against discrimination, against exploitation, then we ourselves cannot be the carriers of exploitative methods. Don't get discouraged if we do not see a lot of people participating, because any change takes time to come, and it is only by a few that any movement grows and becomes larger. So I also have one more activity over here related to organizing. And again, I would encourage people to share their thoughts. Let us say I was to do chalktivism and I would, be thinking about organizing. And the thought that is coming to my mind is chalk art is temporary. It's not really permanent. If somebody has a problem, I'll just put water on it and it'll be washed out. So I don't really need a permit. What do you think about this thought process of mine? Do you think it is appropriate? Do you think it is not? What do you think? Anybody, what do you think would happen if this is the thought I'm having about chalk art? Okay. Disagree, we will need permission. I'm reading this from the chat box from Manas. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Please feel free to correct me. Disagree, we will need permission. Okay. Why do you think, what do you think will happen if I do not take the permission and I just go there? Why will I need permission? Or what is the significance of taking the permission regardless of whether we may need it or not? Okay, it's a simple concept of consent. That is a great point that you have put forward, that if I'm going to be making something on somebody's property or on a property that is not mine, consent is really important. I don't have the right to somebody else's property whether it is government or private, it always makes sense to be more mindful about this and not just go ahead and assume things. Okay, so I have also written something similar. If the permit is not sought, the authorities may intervene because the property is not mine, and they may stop the activity, leading to undesirable consequences that affect the activity as well as the activists. So, first of all, if the property is not mine, I should not be doing something to it without permission, without consent, because it will be vandalism, and it is a very inappropriate behavior that as an activist I should not be portraying. When I am out there doing activism, I am representing the entire movement. Whatever I'm doing, people are going to look at the movement through that lens, through my actions, through my behavior. So if the authorities intervene, if the authorities stop the activity, it may portray the movement in a negative manner, and whatever behavior I'm doing is also not justified. So, though it is temporary, though it may be very simple, though it is my friend, I've talked to them, it is always a good idea to take things in a professional manner, in the appropriate manner, and take the permissions, required permissions, necessary permissions, wherever it may be applicable. The second thing is, all activism, all types of activism is relevant in all regions. What are your thoughts about this? Yes, Neha has also shared about the previous pointer that it can jeopardize your own safety as well, which is also important, because if we are unsafe, if we are unable to do something, then there's no point of advocating at all. We need to be in a safe space. We need to be in a space where we are able to do any advocacy, any activism, for us to create any impact at all. Thank you so much, Sneha. I would also encourage other people to interact. What do you think about the point all activism is relevant in all regions?
Hey everyone, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak. You don't have to come on the video if you're not comfortable, or you can just type in the chat box as well. We really encourage you to have this conversation, because that will help you really build up your own activism as well. Thank you.
I think someone has raised their hand. Please feel free to unmute yourself and share.
So I think that that's not immediately true. I mean, in an urban area, in a rural in region in the countryside, where a lot of livestock industries exist, a vigil or let's say meet the victims type action would have more point than, for example, a disruption or a cube of truth, because it would be more meaningful to show what happens in their own neighborhood.
Very, very true. Very true. So that is the exact point that we need to keep in mind, that while certain activities work better in a particular area, other certain set of activities work in a different area. Let's say I was campaigning against the use of fur for clothing or for fabrics. And if I go ahead and do it outside a dairy facility, would that even make a relevance? It wouldn't. So based on the activity that we are doing and based on what the focus of the activity is, we may need to consider what region, what area is relevant and appropriate for the activity. Let us say I was doing a public demonstration, and if I do it in a closed space, let's say if I'm doing it in a garden where people are not even coming during that time of the day, it's not the morning walking hours, it's not the evening hours, it's in the middle of the afternoon, that won't be helpful at all, because hardly anybody will end up seeing the demonstration. But if I was doing the same demonstration inside a mall, let's say a shopping mall, right at the center, everybody who is passing through the mall will at least look at what is happening. They will see something is happening and they will be able to gain some insight about it. So while certain activities work better at a specific place, there are certain activities that need to be done at a public place. So based on the activity that we are doing, based on the demography that we are at, we need to first understand where will the impact be maximized. Since we are doing an activity, why not just make sure that the impact is maximized instead of just a few people being reached through it? Because whenever you are doing some activism, we want some outcome, we want some achievable outcome. So while trying to do the activism as well, ensuring that the outcome and impact will be maximized also helps us accelerate the movement, which is very important for the individuals who are being exploited. I think somebody has also shared in the chat box. I'm just going to read it. Generally speaking, it should be relevant, but activities thought and planned based on the region could be more impactful. Exactly. Whenever we are thinking of a particular region or an activity, we need to consider these things. And that is why organizing is very, very important. Sri Charan has also said that based on the demography, we need to adapt in developing advocacy messaging. Definitely. Based on the target audience, we also need to ensure that whatever messaging we are using, whatever ways we are using to talk to people, to communicate the message, also needs to be tailor-made for the crowd, for the audience that we are addressing. Maulik is sharing, personally, it's about grabbing the opportunity of place and time and then plan, of course. Let's say if there's a particular event that is coming up where animals are specifically exploited, that will be a good opportunity to raise awareness about that specific thing as well. So thank you so much to everybody who is sharing so many insightful opinions, thoughts, aspects. It's really helping me as well as everybody who is here know about different perspectives on how you think about these things. Okay, we move to the next part, which is about awareness. So this is specifically addressing how we share things with others, and how we spread the awareness, how we tackle the questions that may have nuanced certain answers that one may not be aware of. So if I am to broadly talk about why is this important, it is really important to be aware and then take this awareness forward, because unless we are not aware ourselves, we may portray the movement in a wrong manner or propagate wrong information. As an activist, it is our duty to be responsible in whatever we are sharing, in ensuring that whatever we are sharing is not a propaganda, it is relevant information, it is authentic information, and to be responsible. Because sharing or spreading wrong information is misleading, and we cannot do that as an activist. It's very responsible for us to share misinformation. So we must represent the movement while we are advocating and not our own personal beliefs. Even if I believe in something very strongly, when I'm representing the movement, I am there to represent the non-human people and not myself. So it is important for me to keep my personal beliefs aside and advocate in a way that I represent the movement. So how do we tackle questions then? There will be certain questions that we don't know how to answer, or maybe, we don't know how to respond to them while also being mindful about being anti-speciesist. So how do we do that? First thing to do is gauge the purpose behind the question that is coming towards us. A lot of times we see what we call trolls who are not interested in knowing anything, but they will do everything in their power to direct the communication, the discussion that is going on in a wrong direction, to derail the conversation that is happening. So it is important to remember that we don't have to engage with every single question that comes our way. We are here to spread awareness, and any question that does not help the purpose does not need to be entertained. Engage with people instead who are genuinely interested. In this manner, we will be able to invest our time at the appropriate place and get some desirable impact. So please ensure that wherever you are spending your time, you spend it in a way that it is better invested at a place where we can get some achievable outcome, instead of just, wasting somebody's time and derailing the conversation altogether. Bring the focus back to animals, or like I like to say it, non-human individuals. It is about them. It is about how they are being exploited. It is about liberating them. It is not about us. While we are advocating, a lot of times we do end up, catering to the person that, okay, this will make the other person listen to what I'm saying. Let me take that approach. This will make them stay here for a little longer. Let me take that approach. But are we helping the movement by doing that? A person who needs to be catered to in a way that they feel interested may not end up thinking about the people, the non-human people who are being exploited, who are oppressed over here at all. Because we are making the conversation about the person, we are giving importance to that person that we are talking to, and not the actual individuals who need the attention, for whom we are advocating. So if we are advocating for the non-human people, let us focus on the non-human people. Let us talk about the non-human people. Let us not just cater to somebody who is willing to listen because something interests them. We want to put the focus on, we want to highlight the plight of the non-human individuals, and let us stay focused on the exploitation they are facing on a daily basis. And of course, anti-speciesism is one form of oppression. It is not a solution for everything. So people may say that, you know what, if I stop consuming animal-based foods, then what will happen to my health? There are other ways to tackle that. But this conversation is not about how things will work for you. Of course, these are very practical questions. These are very real concerns that people may have, but these come at a later part. These should not be excuses that people give that because of this, I will not be able to give up exploiting animals. These should not be justifications why a person cannot stop exploiting animals. These may come at a later stage when one says that, yes, I want to stop exploiting animals, teach me how to do it, help me how to do this, guide me on how I can achieve the same. This cannot be a justification on this reason is why I cannot stop exploiting animals. And then we tell them that you don't have to because there is a solution to that. No, we are here to advocate for why is it wrong and why we have no rights to exploit non-human animals and to stop participating in their abuse altogether. The solutions on how to do it can be sought at a later stage as well. So again, I would encourage you all to engage in people, in talking to people in a way that we focus on anti-speciesism the most. The last part of this, after which we'll be going to the question and answer, is consistency. A lot of times we face struggles in remaining consistent, in continuing the work. There's a lot of exhaustion, burnout, tiredness that comes with advocating for non-human animals, non-human individuals, especially when we live in a world that is so conditioned to use individuals, to abuse their bodies, their lives, their secretions, anything that is coming from them. And it normalizes it so much that speaking against it is becoming difficult. First of all, why is it important to remain consistent? Is because if we don't speak about the movement, if we don't keep the momentum alive, who else will? We have to do whatever we are doing because a whole set of individuals, a whole section of the society is being oppressed on a daily basis, yet that is the movement which is gaining little to no consideration, little to no momentum, little to no addressal, even on a daily basis. So it is important to keep it alive. It is important to keep building it slowly and increasing that the movement gains more awareness, more consciousness with time, as well as gaining more experience and knowledge as a person, as an individual, as an activist over time, that we can then exercise with more and more people. So how do we remain consistent? First of all, even if there are a few people joining, do not lose hope. I've seen a lot of people get into the zone of, oh, I tried for several weeks, but hardly 2 people came. But look at how many people you were able to reach, even if you were 2 of you. Even if 2 people are going out there doing something, remaining consistent, they are able to make such a huge impact. Every movement starts with a small number. Maybe 1 person, 2 people, a few handful people start the movement. Slowly looking at them, others also join in. The movement slowly becomes bigger. And it is only by remaining hopeful and positive that we can bring any change and keep it, sustain it in the society. If I were to go out there and say tomorrow that, you know what, it's not going to work, just forget it, nothing is going to work, there is no point in fighting for anything at all. So we do not need to lose hope. We have to remain consistent, even if a lesser number of people are joining. Seek balance with your mental health. This is really, really important. And I really encourage every advocate to take a break whenever they want to. Even though somebody tells you that, oh, but if you don't speak about animals, who else is going to? And you have to remain consistent. How did you take a break? I would say that is toxic positivity, and please stay away from that. It is important to take care of ourselves, look at what our body and mind needs, take a break once in a while, reconnect with ourselves, indulge in some hobbies, meditate, do something that you find interesting, anything, so that you can gain mental and physical balance, mental and physical capacity, so that you're able to sustain actively for longer. a lot of people go head into the movement, into advocacy, and after a point they're so tired, so burnt out, that they're like, no, I can't do this anymore, I'm too tired, because they don't do anything else in their life. As social individuals, as human beings who have a lot of cognition, abilities that help us perceive the world in different ways, it is important to seek that balance with ourselves, with our minds, with our bodies. So please don't hesitate, please don't be ashamed in taking a break for yourself, because unless you take a break for yourself, you will not be able to advocate for the non-human animals, for the non-human individuals anyway. Stay connected with the community. Like-minded people will help you feel included. They will help you feel positive about yourself, about the choices that you are making on a daily basis. They will help you feel like family. They will help you feel understood, because you share the same goals, you're working in the same direction. It will help you feel supported, and it will also give you a place to belong, that this is a place where people like me are consistently talking about these things, following this lifestyle. It will also be a good motivation to remain consistent. Of course, a few do's and don'ts that I strongly recommend. Stay as consistent as you can, support the efforts of others too. A good practice in remaining consistent is also to appreciate the efforts that other fellow activists, advocates may be putting in the movement. If something doesn't work out, choose something simpler. Let's say you tried to pull a full on event and it did not really work out. Maybe just take 2 steps back instead of feeling completely demotivated. Take 2 steps back, do something simpler. If it works out, it will give you a very good motivation, a very positive push to do something even further. Keep encouraging others to join despite whatever they say. Build a community and keep it active. It will help you remain consistent, because there will be accountability, there will be people to support you, there will be people to push you. And if you don't, do not get discouraged if something does not go as well as you planned, because though we try our best, situations are not always in our control, and it is okay. You did your best, you put your efforts, and that is commendable in itself, because it's not easy to do the things that we do as an advocate in the world that we live in. Of course, it is our responsibility to be active, to speak about these evils that happen in the society. But if something does not happen, don't get discouraged. It's okay. After all, we are also human, and it's okay to make mistakes. Don't push yourself so much that you get burnt out and can't sustain anymore. So if you try to push yourself too much and something goes off in the mind, it will create a traumatic experience and you won't be able to go back. If we want to remain consistent, it's always a good idea to not push ourselves too much beyond our capacity or a boundary. Having said that, it is also important to keep evolving over time if it is something that is in our capacity. And don't get discouraged if your friends or family don't understand you, if they fail to empathize with you. Let us try to understand that we were also in their position at one time. I'm assuming that none of us over here were born as an activist, as an advocate, as an anti-speciesist person. And especially if I have to speak about myself, I am still evolving. I can't say that I know everything. Not, absolutely not. Even I am evolving on a daily basis. I'm learning from people like everybody on this workshop, on this call, people I meet on a daily basis, people who may or may not be anti-speciesist. But don't get discouraged if somebody is not able to understand you. They are doing it out of their conditioning, out of a position of being unaware, and that does not mean that you have done anything wrong. And this is exactly why it is important to remain in touch with the community, because you will feel understood over there, and you will feel that you have not done anything wrong, because you actually have not done anything wrong. So I would like to kind of lead to the end of the session by the particular quote that is displayed on the screen by Gary Alfrencioni. We cannot justify treating any sentient non-human as a property, as a resource, as a thing that we can use and kill for our purposes. If you consider this statement, I'm sorry, there's a typo, I think. Instead of we can, it says we and, but it's we can. So if you consider this, if you were to replace the word sentient non-human with a human being, we would, of course, not treat any human being as a property. Unfortunately, non-human individuals are treated as property, even by law, even in the society. But we cannot justify treating them like that, because they are also a part of the society. They are sentient. They have an interest in their lives, in being alive, in living their lives on their own terms, in respect that they deserve, in bodily autonomy, and we do not have the right to treat them as a property. You can see an illustration that we recently made at the Bangalore Animal Liberation March, which says "Liberation for All." And you can see a diverse set of limbs which are there, which are all raising their limbs for the liberation that they all deserve. So if there are any questions and answers, we can carry them ahead over here. Thank you so much. I'll just stop sharing this. I think we can just take the questions. Let me just stop sharing. Yeah. I would really
Yes,
encourage
Darshita. Yes,
to
sorry. Yeah.
watch the videos if they want. Yeah, I was just
Yes.
asking people to turn on their videos if they're comfortable. It would really help in seeing who am I talking to, as well as, it'll make the whole conversation much more meaningful. If you're not comfortable, I completely understand there's no force, but if somebody is comfortable, please go ahead. Yes, Darshita, I can see your hand raised.
Hi. So would you mind just going through how to advocating anti-speciesism again? Because that's just the time I joined in and I missed that part.
I think we are going to be sharing a recording with people
Oh,
who
okay.
vote on it, if that is okay.
Yeah, okay, that's fine then.
We will be sharing it with the participants, right? Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
yes.
fine.
Once the session is over, it will be on our YouTube channel, and I will be sharing it with all the participants who have joined today.
Okay. I'm so
Okay,
sorry,
thank you.
Darshita, because it was like a whole series. It'll take subsequent amount of time. So if that is okay, or
No, that's completely fine as long as I get the information. That's really good. And also, this has been really helpful, the part that I attended. I got a lot of clarity as well. So thank you for this.
thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words. If anybody has any questions or you would like to share something, please feel free to unmute yourself. You don't even have to raise your hand. You can unmute and you can share. I would also like to appreciate how interactive attendees were, because it really helps gain some insight, not only for the fellow participants, but also to me as a speaker on how people are perceiving the information, what are the different perspectives that activists or advocates may have, and what experiences they may have had in person. So thank you to everybody who is interacting. And if there are any questions, we can go ahead and we can take them. We have some time. No problem, Sri Charan. That's completely understandable. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope I'm pronouncing the name properly. If not, please feel free to point it out, and I really apologize for that.
Anyone?
Stuti, I would like to ask one question here. So I am working in IT and I do not see anything being done at a corporate level or something. I mean, not even tea, nothing. You don't get any vegan thing in your office, nor anyone talks about that anywhere. And if you talk about that, it's like a you are being laughed upon kind of. So is there a way we can start there? Because in a organization of thousands of people, I don't know how I get the information who all are vegans and how to connect with them, how to start there. But I would really like to understand if there is a way I can maybe start something in my organization to just bring some awareness maybe. So is there any thought on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And I think a lot of what we discussed would also be applicable over here. So I'll just share a few things that are coming to my mind right out of like off my head. So first of all, you mentioned that it is a huge corporation, thousands of people, and nobody may be aware, or if they are, you don't know how to connect with them. So one thing that we can always do is you can partner with organizations that help in spreading the information, sharing the message, and making people more aware. And if your organization is up for it, that is a collaboration you can work on. For example, FIAPO does a lot of awareness activities where we go to these organizations. We conduct sessions, awareness sessions, similar to what we did today. Today was specifically for people who are advocates about animal rights, non-human people. But we also do sessions on awareness related to what exactly veganism is, why exactly is it important, what is the importance of considering animals or non-human individuals as a part of the society, showing consideration towards them. Of course, there is a set of SOPs that we follow because we write to them officially, we send them an email, or we connect with them with the representative. We finalize a particular date and time that everybody will be more convenient with. And then once that is fixed, we kind of conduct these events. We've also done quite a few events in the past at Be Animal, where we were discussing about the myths related to dairy industry. Like, people consider dairy to be nutritious, Ayurveda, and religious context, so many things. So busting the top 10 myths about dairy and educating people about the same. So we do conduct such sessions. So that is one way in which you can proceed if your organization will be up for it. If not, the second way in which we can go ahead is you form a community. Let's say you have a friend. Maybe you can start talking with your friend and you can say, let's say, okay, you're not vegan, fine. Do you at least believe in this? Do you really feel that this is a cause that should be supported? Would you be willing to help me in just spreading the awareness with other people? Start building a community. It's always a good idea to have non-vegans or people who do not understand the movement included, because slowly, through working for awareness, slowly through having these conversations with us advocates, they will also be able to understand why is it important, because they themselves are also advocating it without any pressure of them going vegan. So a lot of people say that be abolitionist in your approach, but being abolitionist is also possible while including other people who may not be vegan yet. We are also spreading the same message, but we are involving these people. We are telling them that if you're interested, we are interested. If you want to help the cause, we are interested. So they will feel that this space is being created for them, where we want more people to just start caring, and slowly they will become more aware. They will also start understanding the concept, and they will also start adapting these changes in their own lives. And through this, other people will keep joining in, because hope, inspiration, all these things are so impactful, especially for the human species. They play a very huge role in bringing any change. So, by being a role model, by being inclusive and having more people join in, it will definitely make an impact and help the community grow. If you are not able to do it, we can have some small activities which happen on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and we can have people get involved. We can have hands-on activities. Instead of planning a meet out or a meeting at a cafe, maybe once in a while we can go to a shelter. We can have these small community engaging activities that we organize, where people can come, they can be a part of it, they can have experience, and they can then adapt the change. Because the reason why I was also advocating on focusing on the movement and not convincing the other person is because the change has to be internal. And for any change to be internal, they need to find the reason that motivates them to bring the change. If we try to cater to what interests them more, it is more like an external thing, that they're already interested in something. You show them like a lollipop and tell them that you need to get this, you want to get this is what you have to do, which is not an approach that is sustainable or long term. So, Jaspreet, I hope this was helpful. In case if you would like to go ahead, we can connect after the call. I can put in my email ID over here. And I think Sneha can also help in conducting more such sessions. So we can, of course, connect afterwards as well and take this ahead wherever we are able to. I'll be more than happy to help get such events conducted in your organizations, in your regions, your cities, communities, anything, and help in whatever way. Another thing that is also coming to my mind is using leaflets or pamphlets or posters and putting them at places where people go visit a lot. These are ways of passive advocacy activism, but they are also effective. So if you want, we can send you some FIAPO leaflets sent over. If Animal Alliance Asia has some material that we can use, we can get that sent to you, and you can put it at public bulletins or places where people see it. And that can be a good conversation starter. Maybe if somebody is looking at it, and you can just go and ask, what are your thoughts? You're reading this. I was curious what you think about it. What are your thoughts about this? How do you feel about it? So these are also ways in which we can kind of, take it ahead. So I hope that answer was helpful, Jaspreet, and I hope that was insightful for others as well.
Yes, Tuti. I mean, it is really helpful because I think I would like to connect with you after the call or maybe through your email ID. But for sure, if I get those leaflets or something, so that way I can start at least. But thank you so much for this. Thank you.
I put my email ID in the chat box for everybody to go through it. So please feel free. Sri Charan's message also says something about AWBP Trust. I think we had collaborated earlier. I don't think I remember it. If I am wrong, I'm extremely sorry. But yeah, they are also doing an amazing job of placing water bowls in different places. This is also a good way in engaging your community to care about the street animals and, take baby steps in doing whatever they are able to do for the animals. So you can place water bowls, you can get in touch with AWBP Trust, and you can place water bowls. You can start filling them. You can ask people to just, fill the bowl if they see that it's empty. That way, that will be like a really good initiation for people to start getting engaged in animal protection in whatever small way they are able to. And that will be a good entry point for them in the movement to kind of engage them, to make them more active. And yeah, I think everybody should engage in whatever way they are able to. So big shout out to AWBP as well for the same, and you can get in touch. I think they've put the Instagram handle as well, so we can connect with them and take it ahead as well. Yes, Lakshman is extremely active. I know, I have been in touch with him. Even on WhatsApp, I keep seeing messages. So that is also a very good way to engage with people. Sharing things on WhatsApp, just sharing them. Even if you feel that nobody will watch it, just put a small one-liner message that I really encourage people to see this. I care about you. That is why I would like you to care about this cause as well. Something like that, something motivating, and just put it out there. I strongly feel that everybody has good within themselves. Everybody has a heart. Everybody is a good person somewhere within themselves. But it's just the conditioning, and it is just the way certain people's mindsets are that prevent them from being aware or mindful or conscious. And if we are able to just reach that goodness within them, I think people will want to be more just and more equitable in the society. Thank you, Shubhra, for the kind words in the chat box. I'm really grateful. In case any of you have any other questions, please feel free to share. Yes, Neha, please.
Hi, Stuti. Thank you so much for this session. This was very, very insightful. I think I have also learned so much from it, and definitely it has encouraged me to, expand my horizon of activism, because, the similar issues that you said that I also face, that, oh, what if the people don't show up? And, even for this forum, for example, like I was really nervous if people are not going to be sure, but I really like how we have started communicating and there's conversations going on, and that we are sharing our experiences, our thoughts. So I think even creating that space is really important, and that can also in fact encourage people to join in and talk about the movement. So I'm really, really glad that we could do this today, and thank you for the brilliant content that you created. It is so important. It's so also easy to comprehend and understand the points that you have stated with do's and don'ts, with the different scenarios that practical scenarios that has happened with a lot of us activists as well on the ground. So I'm really, really grateful for this. Thank you so much for that. And I do have a few questions. If you have some time, we can address them.
Sure. Yeah, if all the attendees also have the time and are fine with it, I think we can definitely take up the questions.
Okay, great. Anybody else would like to go first? Please feel free to step in. We can always go back and forth on the questions. That's not a problem. So if there's anybody else who wants to ask a question, type in a question, please feel free and go ahead and do that. Meanwhile, I will just share a couple of questions. The first one would be, what kind of examples can you share when we talk about, you mentioned about using discriminatory language. Sorry, there's something. Okay, you mentioned about subconsciously using discriminatory language while advocating for animal rights. Is it possible for you to elaborate on that? You don't have to use the phrases that are used, but just for like how it can be layered with other forms of human discrimination as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So what happens a lot of times is when we are speaking against the discrimination done against non-human animals, or discrimination done on the basis of species, we tend to use certain language that may be discriminatory on some other terms. For example, things that aren't in control of a particular individual. Let's say, if I talk about myself, I can't control my skin color, I can't control my religion, I can't control the culture I was born in, I can't control what my body looks like, what my gender is. That's just how I was born. When we comment on these things and we use them as a derogatory term, just like the example that I was using about how we say that, animals behaving like an animal or acting like an animal is derogatory. So when we comment on things that aren't in control of an individual and we use them to make a derogatory remark on somebody, that is definitely a discriminative language. Even if I was to go advocate for non-human animals and I use my presumptions while talking about them, that is also going to be something which is discriminatory language. Let's say I believe that I'll just talk about myself because I don't want to be discriminating anybody over here. So let's say I go to the field and I say that, oh, you know what, I identify myself as a female. So let's say I went and I said that, all females are like this, they don't understand, whatever. These are very stereotypical things that I'm saying, which ends up categorizing people into one particular box. And I'm using that as my own opinion, but I'm stating that as a fact. And I'm putting people in this box, by which I am also pushing other people to think about it in that particular manner. I technically should not be doing that because different people are different. Everybody has a distinct personality. And whenever we start making comments on somebody, it becomes very derogatory for them. Even if I may go ahead and say that, oh, there's a slaughterhouse, it's going to be belonging to a particular religion, that is discriminatory. Along with this, the tone of language is also something that we need to keep in mind. If I was going to somebody and I say that, if you exploit animals, you're a cruel person, it's not the kind of language that we should be using, because it ends up portraying the message that if you do this, you are cruel. It completely takes away the context that somebody may be doing it out of a lack of awareness. They may be conditioned, they grew up in a particular manner, that's why they may be doing it, but we labeled them. So whenever we label people, that is a very discriminatory thing that we do. So labels are something that I avoid using, and we need to be as neutral in our language, as respectful in our language, as encouraging in our language as possible. It may also be, possible that sometimes it may not be in a person's control. For example, somebody who is staying on the border, who is fighting for the country, and we tell them, you know what, if you consume animals, you are a coward, no matter how bravely you fight for the country. We are taking away the demographic aspect, the practical aspect from their life, and we are being discriminatory towards them. Somebody who is on the border is living a very different life, which does not have the convenience that somebody living in the city may be having. Somebody in a village may not be having access to so many things that we living in a tier 2 or tier 3 city may be having. So whenever we become like non-inclusive in our language, we are discriminating against people for things that are not under their own control. So that is the kind of language that we need to stop using. There are also certain terms which are ableist. For example, we say that you're so dumb. Dumb is a word that is used with somebody who was born with the inability to be able to speak. Using that as an insult is an ableist connotation that we must avoid, because just the way we were talking about being anti-speciesist, it's important to be anti-discriminatory, anti-oppressive in our approach as well, and stay consistent. Because when we advocate for the rights of animals, the inherent qualities that somebody is born with, it is also inclusive towards people who do not fit our definition of normal, our definition of what typical or ideal is. That does not take away their right to their life, to their bodies, to dignity, to respect. So that is these are a few examples that I think I can use of being non-discriminatory. I hope that answers your question, Sneha.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great elaboration. And I think it's very important, as new activists, as old activists, to always reflect back on our ways of activism, improvise where we can. We can't be perfect in everything, but we can always be mindful of who we are talking to, how we are talking, because at the end, we all want equal rights. We all deserve it. And that's what we want to aim for. So thank you so much for addressing that. You've put it beautifully. And I just have one more question. I think this also came from Shubhra. She mentions that what are the activities that we have to conduct legally? But in case if we don't follow it, what are the legal repercussions for it?
Okay. So by activities that we have to do legally, do you mean about the permissions and other things?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So vandalism is a serious consequence that may come to somebody who is, doing something on another property. I'll give you an example of what had happened. There was a cafe out of which certain activists were protesting and, doing some activism, conducting an activism. I think Muskan may be aware of this since it was in Bangalore. So the cafe people, they came and they started arguing and saying that we'll call the police on you because you're doing it in front of our cafe, which is our place. Now, the activists are mindful of not standing on the property of the cafe. They were standing off of the pavement, which is a government property, and they have sought permissions. They had the permissions. So, if we did not have the permissions, they can take legal action about vandalism, about trespassing. And a lot of times people do this because they have a problem with the advocacy which is happening. Because these restaurants, cafes, though they are not doing it consciously, they are selling products which are animal based, and they are involved in businesses that fetch them revenues. And if these advocates were to reduce the demand of these products, it will directly impact them. So they don't have the awareness of why we are doing what we are doing, so they end up taking it in a way that this is directly a threat for their business, and so they will fight tooth and bone to stop the advocacy and not let the business be affected. So then they went ahead and they started threatening. Now, because the activists had the permission for the government property, which was the road, the pavement, they did not face any issues. And I think FIAPO was also involved in this, which is why I'm aware of this and I am able to share it with such confidence. Because then we spoke to the police and we told them that if it was a government property, if the police does not have a problem, and then why is the cafe harassing these people, threatening them, and then the issue kind of got sorted. So it is important to take these things in note and keep these in mind so that we don't end up becoming a part of legal issues that may end up affecting us. Now, let's say if the activists were on the property and they did not have the permission, they could be banned from doing activism over there. So some activity which is creating such a large impact on a weekly basis where so many people are being reached, it would have completely stopped. And then the impact further on would be zero. So it is important to keep these things in mind and be careful about these so that this does not happen and they are able to sustain the way they are. So this is, I think these are few of the consequences that may come to somebody. They may be banned, they may be given a fine, they may also be put in jail based on whatever sections they have applied while putting the complaint, maybe for the night or whatever, because property is something that is taken very seriously, and under the civil laws, under the criminal laws, trespassing, moving somebody's property, entering somebody's property, vandalizing, even if you move something here or there without the person's consent, can be taken under a criminal or civil law. So these are things that we need to keep in mind while we are doing something. Having said that, there are also certain animal protection laws that we must be aware of, and if somebody is, they find it in their own capacity, PCA Act, that is the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, Slaughterhouse Regulations Act. There are so many different acts which are in place that one can take care of. Of course, the environmental and the sewage disposal acts are also there, which are in some way or the other related to animal protection, because the slaughterhouses which are running, the dairy farms which are running, there are certain things that they need to keep in mind while disposing the waste, in the water supply that they have, in the pollution they are creating, all of these aspects. So if maybe we want to discuss that, we can take the topic in another forum maybe, or we can discuss it later. But yeah, it is really important for us to be aware about the legal aspect, because no matter how right or wrong something may be morally or ethically, we are preceded by a judicial system. So unless the laws are in place and we follow them, they have the capacity or the privilege rather to stop us, to prevent us from doing it any further. So it's always a good idea to be aware about the laws and to work in compliance with the laws, while also advocating for policy making and change in the law that is more non-human persons friendly, that advocates more for their rights. So I hope this also answered the question. I shared like quite a lot of information about the topic, but still.
No, I think it was just the perfect amount. It's great that you mentioned about the loss, because that's also one of the things where, especially when we go out for in public place, if you want to organize any events, it's very important for us also to know where our rights also are drawn, and where we don't impinge on other people's rights as well. So that's a great point, and I definitely think it will need a whole different session for to know animal rights, the legalities of it, and to know as a citizen, as an activist of the country as well. So thank you so much for that insight. It was really great. Anybody
Thank you.
else who would want to go next for any questions? If you want to say anything, if you want to add a comment, if you want to compliment anything, that's also great. That's also welcomed. Please feel free to have a discussion. This is an open platform. You can unmute yourselves and you can also discuss if there's anything you want to share, talk, ask. Anyone? No? No questions, no doubts? Great.
Add my responses to both the questions 2 and 3. Whatever knowledge I have learned today and how to break down this knowledge into the projects that can be implemented, I would like to work with FIAPO India as a volunteer. In fact, many months back, I had registered as a volunteer to be part of one of the 3 campaigns. I remember it was people who wanted to volunteer with FIAPO India can be part of either campaigns on farmed animals, wild animals, and companion animals. So at that moment, I had chosen to volunteer for farmed animals, because I see climate change and animal agriculture are a lot interconnected. So that is where I would like to work on, and all this would definitely help in engaging with the stakeholders, both pro and against. It is so important to be inclusive of, as a vegan for other animals, I need not necessarily constrain myself to interacting with like-minded people. And this is something I learned when I, out of my passion for veganism, I had interned at Hyderabad Vegan Fest in their first edition. At that time, the founder of Altmart, this badge I'm wearing, it says vegan for animals. I got it from Altmart only, and their founder Rupa Obul Reddy Gari, she informed many of us interns who had come to work for the Hyderabad Vegan Fest. She said that we will be having a lot of footfall, including people who are pro animals and not. So we need to be inclusive of both pro and against animal rights. People who are pro and against animal rights, only then we can engage with them. Yeah. I hope I added some valuable responses to these questions. Yeah, thank you.
Forum and making this successful. I'm really personally really super happy how this went. I think a lot of us learned a lot here, and thank you so much, Stuti, for being here, for being such a sport.